part 2 of my Headless Horseman story using the 1,000-year-old vampire book. This was part 1 that I made a video on. So this is part 2. So what I was hoping to incorporate into the new story, because I wasn't able in the part 1, was I really wanted to get this Castlevania castle into the story. I really wanted to get that in the story, and I also wanted, if the book would allow me, I wanted to introduce this guy, right? You see him? Gargoyle. I think the Headless Horseman versus a gargoyle would just be awesome. So I was hoping to get the castle and a gargoyle into that. Was I successful? Alright, so part 2. Oh, if you don't know, 1,000-Year-Old Vampire is a book that you can buy, and you use dice to determine what page you go to, and it gives you directions on how to move your story forward, and then you just, you do math. Alright, so part 1 left off, summary. Part 1, Soleil, which is French for sun, joins the British to fight in the Revolutionary War. He is assigned to a Hessian cavalry. He heads into the United States, or what will become the United States, where an old accomplice of his named Foray, which is French for forest, a French whore, who he made immortal. She travels to the 13 colonies during the Revolutionary War, and she sets him up, and she is the reason why his head gets blown off and he becomes a Headless Horseman. The Revolutionary War ends, and the ending is Foray, the lady, the immortal, the other immortal, she disappears with his head, and now the Headless Horseman is cursed, haunts the forest of Sleepy Hollow. That's summary of part 1. So here we go, part 2, page 1 of the book. Well, if you don't know, this is the Headless Horseman. He has an axe. He chops people's heads off. And he has a horse. Right? Just so you know. Page 1. While traveling the roads at night, a forest witch confronts him. She attempts to control him. He cuts her head off. Roll the dice. Page 4. The forest witch's coven finds out and destroys the horseman's sleeping ground at the graveyard. He flees Sleepy Hollow to a nearby village to hide and regain strength. A little boy finds him and believes the horseman is his friend. The little boy names the Headless Horseman Pumpkin. And I thought that was a nice nod. The Headless Horseman is always seen or portrayed throwing pumpkins and whatever, jack-o'-lanterns. So roll the dice. Page 8. One night, while the boy is visiting the horseman, a vampire named Snow White grabs the boy and attempts to flee. The horseman fends her off, but the boy's throat is ripped out. Snow White gets away. The horseman chops the boy's head off so he won't become a vampire, but now the little boy's soul is cursed and absorbed into the horseman forever. So in part 1, you find out that when the horseman kills you, right, chops you up, chops your head off, you are absorbed into him, and he takes that power, and he is able to manifest you as like a ghost, right? So if he kills you, you're basically cursed to be with him forever. So he kills, before the little boy dies and becomes a vampire, the horseman cuts his head off, and now the boy is absorbed into him and is cursed, basically. Roll the dice. Page 12. Search parties find the boy's body and hunt for the horseman. The horseman flees deeper into the forest using Native American trails. So the villagers are pissed and they chase the horseman off. Roll the dice. Page 17. Becoming weaker from being away from the graveyard. So the graveyard of Sleepy Hollow is a place, it's kind of like the resting place for the horseman, where he can gain his power back, whatever, during the daytime. Kind of like a vampire, right? Sleeps during the day in a coffin. The horseman sleeps in a grave. Well, anyway, so now he's been denied. He's been chased out of Sleepy Hollow, and the witches had basically destroyed the graveyard. So now he's on the run. Page 17. Becoming weaker from being away from the graveyard, the horseman attacks a church having a nighttime festival. He absorbs many souls and becomes stronger. Page 19. The town of Sleepy Hollow and another nearby village begin fighting over who gets to hunt down the horseman. The horseman baits both of them, and while the men are away, the horseman rides into the village and cuts the head off of the elderly women and children and heads back to Sleepy Hollow. So, yeah. Page 24. The town of Sleepy Hollow now call him My Machina, which is, if I pronounce it correctly, is Dutch for reaper. So the people of Sleepy Hollow give him the name My Machina, the reaper. Page 19. The people of Sleepy Hollow believe the nearby village is cursed. They gather their pitchforks and torches and destroy the village. Some of the villagers are hanged from a tree. Later, the horseman uses the hanging tree as a new place to sleep. So since all that death occurred, since the people of Sleepy Hollow went into the village, killed them all, hung them up on a tree, because there's so much negative energy and death in this tree, the horseman says, I can use that. There's power there. So he burrows into the tree and now has a replacement place to sleep instead of the graveyard that he was denied, chased out of. Page 15. A fox spirit tells the horseman to leave. The horseman's horse bites and kicks it into the dirt. The fox spirit... Oh, so I actually have... So the horseman's under this tree, and see, he's green like a matches the eyes of the horse, right? It's magic, basically. So a fox spirit tells the horseman to leave, and then the horse attacks the fox, and the fox is beaten into submission. And gives up the tree. So the tree was this fox spirit's home, but now it's the horseman's. Page 23. The fox spirit teaches the horseman how to absorb energy from the land. The horseman becomes more powerful. So this kind of gets into the, this animal is tuned into the earth, right? And so the fox, since the fox can't get rid of the horseman, the fox teaches the horseman how to, while in the ground, sleeping, right, while under the tree, the fox is teaching the horseman how to just absorb the land, basically like the Force, right, from Star Wars, basically how to just, you don't need to necessarily cut heads off and absorb souls. You can actually learn to tune into to Earth and get power from that. Maybe not much, but it'll sustain you. How to become one with the Earth, basically. Page 20. Since the nearby village was destroyed, because remember Sleepy Hollow destroyed that one village, new settlers are coming and moving in. The horseman kills and gains more power. Page 25. So now the horseman can absorb from the land, and now all these settlers are moving in, and the horseman's just hacking away. He's just becoming just this huge battery of power. Page 25. The horseman's constant murdering causes the settlers to leave and Sleepy Hollow to set up defenses. The horseman digs under the tree and slowly absorbs life from the land to sustain himself. Yeah, so homie's too good at killing. The settlers are like, peace out. Page 32. The horseman finds one of the coven witches that banished him. So remember at the beginning of the story, the horseman killed that witch. The coven found out, and they, took away his graveyard home. Well, now he finds one of those witches, and he grabs her. She's alone in the forest, and he grabs her. He captures her and buries her alive under the tree. He uses his abilities and her power to keep her suspended and a prisoner. So I don't remember what the book told me to do, but yeah, so basically the horseman grabs this witch and, he's like, hey, I remember you. He grabs her, takes her into the ground, basically entombs her in the dirt, and basically through somehow, some way with his powers, he's able to just put her in like a suspended animation, like a coma. And so now she's just buried alive, and as he's resting next to her, he can use her power. And it's just even more, she's just another battery for him to drain slowly, because remember, she's got magic and whatnot. I don't know what the book told me to do, but that's what I came up with. Page 35. Using blood magic, the daughter of the prisoner witch finds where she is being held. The horseman confronts the witch daughter. The witch daughter says she never liked your mother and he can keep her. Her name is Book. So that incorporated a little bit of blood magic, witchcraft or whatever. So her daughter finds her mother buried under the dirt. And her name, the witch's daughter, right, is named Book. Book, right? Book. And the reason why I named her Book is because I like books. So now the horseman has a friend, because the daughter's like, oh, I never liked my mom. You can keep her. And Book, now that her mother's gone, Book rises in the coven. Her position is, she's better with her mom in the ground, dead basically, missing, than there. So it makes sense that Book could track her mother because of blood magic, right? Blood, through the same blood, same DNA. Page 37. Nothing happens. That's my note, so that probably means the book told me to change a mechanic of something, like you lose a memory. It has nothing to do with the story. Page 40. Book, the witch's daughter. Book visits the tree and the horseman often. She sometimes brings him settlers and gypsies. I gotta have a gypsy. Gypsies. to absorb. So now Book is even bringing people to the tree for him to kill. Page 40. One night, the Headless Horseman and his horse rise out of the tree. Page 40. One night, the Headless Horseman and his horse rise out of the tree. All right. Rise out of the tree. Rise out of the tree. And waiting for them on a branch is a crow with red eyes. The horse becomes nervous and starts to run. The crow catches up and burrows and digs into the horseman's throat. So horseman, the horse and the horseman come out of the ground, out of the tree. There's a crow staring at them. They start riding off, and the horse panics, senses something's different about this crow. They start riding off. Look at these little figures. The crow actually catches up and then digs into him, like just goes inside of him, burrows inside the horseman's body. Suddenly, the horseman is standing on the plains of the west. Crows and buffalo are everywhere. The crow offers to let the horseman stay. The horseman declines and wakes up in the Sleepy Hollow forest with the red-eyed crow gone. Yes, remember the book was like, you meet like another immortal creature, and it takes you on a fantastic journey and asks you to stay. What do you do? And I was like, what? So yeah, I came up with the crow. I kind of went with the whole Native American kind of vibe. So I thought seeing the Headless Horseman in the Wild West, with the plains and the buffalo, and the crow is basically saying, hey, stay here. And the horseman declines. And he wakes back up in Sleepy Hollow. Page 41. Nothing happens. That means the book had me do something that didn't matter to the story. Roll the dice. Page 44. The vampire Snow White returns and senses how strong the Headless Horseman has become. While under the tree, the Headless Horseman wakes up with Snow White biting and draining him from the neck. Biting him from the neck. She then has a apple. I had to get an apple. It's a Snow White story. Dripping with magical poison into the wound. She escapes, and the horseman falls into a coma. So I just thought it'd be cool. The horseman, he's in the ground during the daytime, and he wakes up, and Snow White is just digging, because he doesn't have a head, but he has a neck. Snow White is just draining him, and he's just, and then she poisons him and gets away. And so now he's left drained and poisoned by the apple, and he's in basically a coma. I didn't write down the page number. But anyways, the horseman wakes up hundreds of years later. He and his horse burst out of a sidewalk. The year is 2024. Sleepy Hollow is now a tourist attraction, and he has no idea who Irving or Ichabod Crane is. The coven which he kept as a prisoner next to him is dust. So Snow White poisons the Headless Horseman, and he's in this coma. He wakes up hundreds of years later to modern day, 2024. He bursts out of the ground. He looks around, and now there's like cars, there's people, there's Starbucks, there's Wi-Fi. So he's just looking around like, what? And then the body of the witch, because remember he had that witch next to him? She's now, she's dead. Hundreds of years. Oh, and he has no idea of Ichabod Crane or Washington Irving. That's all made up. Never happened. The coven. Oh wait. Page 50. While riding through the streets flooded by traffic, people run and police show up. The Headless Horseman rides to the graveyard. He's back at the graveyard, which you can visit. Rides to the graveyard, disappears at the bridge, the famous bridge, and reappears at his original grave. They sink into the dirt, unknown to the scared town people. So yeah, the horseman he's drawn to the graveyard for power, right? He's left the tree, and now he makes it to the graveyard, and he digs in. Page 52. The horseman is home. Page 56. The horseman extends his power in the graveyard and starts giving up its souls to him. Oh yeah, so now he's in this graveyard. Hundred of years have passed, and people have been buried there, and now for all those restless souls that are there, he can now, while he's under there, while he's, sleeping under there, he can now absorb all these generations of people in the Sleepy Hollow graveyard. They're all his now. Yeah, every funeral will become food for him. Yeah, so every time, like even to this day, right? If there's a funeral there, someone's buried, he absorbs it. He's just underneath there like a, yeah. Page 57. How long is this? Oh God. Using his ability to take the absorbed souls, the power, and turn them into ghosts, he creates ghostly apparitions in the graveyard, causing more tourists to come. He absorbs bits of energy as they walk around his resting place. So basically, he's turned the graveyard into a web, and he's the spider. While he's underground, he's able to use his power, because remember, every time he kills someone, he can make them reappear, right? As like a phantasmal ghost type thing. So it'd be like if he killed this fox, he can bring the fox back as a ghost because it's cursed. Anyways, so now he's like a bringing flies to the web. Now he's using his power to make little ghosts show up, and so all these ghost hunters and all these people, social media, they start investigating. And now what he does is, while he's under there, he's able, when you walk through the cemetery, he's absorbing your energy slowly, and maybe when you visit, you'll get sick, like, oh, I don't, you feel dizzy. You think maybe it's the climate or something you ate, but actually it's him. The longer you stay in the graveyard, his web, which has now become his web, he's slowly draining you. I thought that was interesting. So if you ever visit the graveyard and you get sick, it's because he's doing that. And he's using these ghosts, these cursed souls that he's bringing back as bait. I'm almost done, by the way. Where am I? Page 60. The Headless Horseman rides at night, taking the heads off of the few people he finds. The police and news media blame it on Halloween Satanists and a few teenagers and immigrants who are blamed and questioned. So I really wanted the horseman to leave the grave, and so I thought, I was like, I'm gonna have him go out and he's still gonna hack away, right? But of course, news media and stuff, they're just saying like, oh no, it's those crazy teenagers, and there's a lot of like illegal immigrants, whatever, around, homeless people, so they just blame it on them. Like, oh, it's these Satanists. It's like, no, it's actually, yeah. Where am I? The police. Page 59. A woman named Selva finds the diary and grimoire of Book. Remember, Book was the daughter of that witch from hundreds of years ago? She hated her mom. Well, she wrote a diary, and this woman named Selva found the book using the knowledge and clues found in the diary and grimoire. Selva tracks down the horseman and tries to communicate with him. The horseman allows her to live and ignores her. So Selva, if I'm pronouncing it right, Selva is the Spanish word for jungle. The reason why I named the character Jungle is because I like the jungle. And so I thought, well, what does Selva look like? I didn't really know. So what I did is I used, and yes, I have figures for this. I guess Selva looks like this. This is a character from the Is this blurry? This is a character, who cares? This is a character from Gargoyles. So yeah, spatially, she's a Hispanic woman who found the diaries, the diary and the grimoire, and now she learns about the horseman, and she confronts him. And he's just like, I don't care. Page 56, Selva recruits some ghost investigators to help her exorcise the Headless Horseman from Sleepy Hollow. The Headless Horseman chops all the heads off of the investigators, grabs Selva, and brings her down into a sleeping grave. He suspends her and keeps her entombed with her. So she brings all these people to get him. He comes out, hacks them all up, but then drags her back down to him and traps her down there, just like he had done to that witch. He does the same to her. Page 57. Selva outsmarts the horseman. Reading those books, reading the diary and grimoire, she was prepared to be taken under. Using magical items, she is able to enter the horseman's dreams and speak to the souls he still controls. She learns vast knowledge and possible ways to defeat him. Yeah, so the book said make her smart. So yeah, so basically she knew there was a chance she was going to be trapped. So she actually was prepared for it. And now she's communicating with all the souls that are inside him, and she's learning more and more ways how to destroy him. So the entire time they're like this, she's in his mind, his whatever, and she's learning how to defeat him because she's smart. Page 66, nothing happens. Page 63, the Headless Horseman rises out of the graveyard. It is now October, so tourists think he is a performer or cosplayer. They attempt to take photos with him. The horseman takes no lives that night. Many people have blurry selfies with him. So yeah, he's riding around and people are like, oh look, it's a cosplayer. And it's actually the Headless Horseman. They take photos with him as he's riding by, but none of the pictures come out. Page 62. The Headless Horseman realizes that witches are now accepted as Wiccan and are trendy, no longer tortured. He attempts to hunt them down, but senses all of them have no actual powers of magic. They are fake. So that was interesting. So, he sees all these, people walking by with the little witchcraft symbols and all this. And so he's like, he wants them because witches give him power, but he walks up to these people or rides up to them, and then he realizes they're not real witches. They're just people who are like, I love Gaia and Mother Earth. That's all fake. They're all just wearing crystals and yeah. So he's like, what is this? It's just people with tattoos and crystals and whatever. Which back in his day you wouldn't do that because you'd be not burned, but you know what I mean. It's a different culture now. Page 59. At dawn, the horseman returns to the graveyard and sees Selva has escaped. Oh yeah, so he comes back and she's gone. So she actually not only outsmarted him, she was prepared to be taken under. She's learned everything she can, and somehow, some way, she has escaped. Page 60. Since Selva is a suspect for the death of the ghost investigators, she places some of her bloody clothes on a homeless person and calls the police anonymously. When the police arrive, the homeless person panics and the police shoot and kill him. Yeah, so she comes out of escapes and finds out that the police are looking for her because she's missing, right? All those ghost investigators were killed. Where's she at? So she's like, oh, how do I explain this? So she takes her clothes, puts them on a homeless person, calls it in. The cop, and of course, the homeless person wakes up like what is, it's covered in blood, and so he's like, what's going on? He panics, right? Because the cops are like, hey, and they kill him. And eventually he's blamed for the death, and she's still considered missing. Page 64. Due to illegal immigration, it leads to a lot of unidentified immigrants to feed upon. The Horseman attacks areas of large homeless populations with little police or public attention. So you got all these homeless people now everywhere, and so the Horseman's he's just riding through, hacking them up, and a lot of people aren't really caring about it because they don't really care. Page 69. 4A. Remember her? She's from part 1. She's the French lady. She comes back to feed on. The Horseman attacks... 4A calls to the Horseman out of his grave. She welcomes him to the new era. She teases about losing his head over a century ago. They become friends and hunt together. She sleeps in his grave with him. So the book said, bring back an immortal, so I brought back 4A. So the woman, all the way from part 1, the previous video, she just finds him. This is centuries later. She calls him out of his grave. And she's just like, hey, what's up? And they just become friends. Oh, and she had his head, because remember he's looking for, but yeah, she's like, I don't even know where it's at. I don't even know. I lost it like a century ago. It's somewhere, someplace. I don't know. I know they hunt together. Page 74. One morning, Selva returns with the descendants of the witch coven from hundreds of years ago. So remember those witches a long time ago? Their descendants, their great-great-great-great-grandchildren, she finds them and stands over the grave that holds the Horseman and 4A and the horse. So now they're standing over the grave. Selva and the witches magically bind the Headless Horseman and 4A together to sleep and dream forever over 1,000 years. In the dream, Soleil, which is the Horseman's French name, son, Soleil and 4A have multiple children and happy lives. The end. Yeah, so when I got to page 74, the book said, end it. End your story. Something happens, end it. So I thought, well, how am I going to end it? So I thought a good ending would be, because she is actually smarter than the Headless Horseman. So yeah, she escapes entombment, digs herself out, and she goes to the witches and says, hey, I know where the Horseman is. They show up in the daytime, and while the Horseman is under with 4A, the French lady, she shows up over his grave with the other witches, and she binds them like ropes, magical ropes. And him and 4A are now trapped together for over 1,000 years, and their dreams connect. And they, over these 1,000 years of being trapped, they end up having happy lives. They have families and so forth. And I didn't really want to give the Horseman a happy ending because he's not really a good person. But I just went with that. So that's the ending. The book said, end the story. So that's how it ends. It ends with the Headless Horseman And 4A. Oh, and in the dreams, the horseman has his head back because it's a dream, right? He has his head back, and they're happy. Yeah, that's it. That's the story. So, will I do another horseman story? I won't continue that one. It would be something completely different. I think that story's been told. Now, can I go back and rewrite this story and fill in some blanks and make it flow better? Yep. Am I going to? Nope. It's done. It was what it was. I used the book. And once again, I was not able to incorporate what I wanted to, which I think would have been awesome. But I'll save that for another one, I guess. But anyways, there you go. That's part 2. That's the end. Wish you all a beautiful day.